Ladies and gentlemen, paging the Red Dragon. Please welcome, from Tennessee, Senator Bill Hagerty, and your host, author and CPAC board member, Gordon Chang.
Hello, Americans! Senator?
Thanks, Gordon.
China's regime is attacking America. Joe Biden's not defending us. American elites are not defending us. But we have some great defenders like Bill Hagerty. Senator, thank you for defending our country.
Thank you so much.
I want to start with the most consequential issue of our time, and that is Chinese ruler Xi Jinping is preparing for war. He's sponsored the biggest military buildup since the Second World War. He's declared his war cabinet, and he is preparing China's civilians for war. But we need someone to help us and protect us. Why isn't the White House doing that?
It's amazing to me that the Biden administration hasn't learned the most fundamental lesson from the Trump administration. And President Trump understood this clearly, that to deal with China, to deal with communist China, you must deal from a position of absolute strength. And what the Biden administration has done is try to negotiate from a position of weakness. And I've said this before, Gordon, if you asked someone to solve the equation where China wins every time and the US loses every time, at every instant, the Biden administration would get an A+ on that paper. They seem to be solving in favor of China and putting us at a disadvantage. Somehow they must believe that by turning the other cheek, that's going to make China turn our way. That's absolutely not the case.
We know that China's attacking us with fentanyl. And when we have the statistics for next year, or last year, it'll be about 80,000 Americans have died from doses of illegal Chinese fentanyl. I know that you've been passionate about this issue and you've got legislation on this. If you can explain.
Indeed. I've been concerned about the fentanyl crisis for years. When I was the U.S. ambassador to Japan, I was literally on the phone with the White House staff as President Trump was meeting with President Xi, telling him not to ship fentanyl into the United States. Xi agreed to that, but he didn't agree to stop sending the precursors. Those precursor chemicals now are flowing into Mexico. The CCP are tied to these cartels. They are working together to create this poison that they're shoving across our borders, using these billion-dollar illegal drug cartels, their partners in Mexico, to do it. They are killing American kids. You think about the violation of our sovereignty that everyone was upset about when the CCP balloon floated over America. Well, the CCP is violating our sovereignty every single day when they kill our youth here in America. And make no mistake, Gordon, a CCP fingerprint is on every one of those fentanyl pills that comes across. Their fingerprint is on every death certificate that has to be signed for our youth.
Yeah. The Chinese regime maintains a total surveillance state, so they know what these fentanyl gangs are doing. And these fentanyl gangs actually launder their proceeds through the Chinese state banking system. I imagine this must affect people in Tennessee.
Oh, the fentanyl crisis is affecting Tennessee in a severe manner. Every day I talk to sheriffs across the state. They tell me that this month is worse than the month before it. And the hardest call that any of them have to make is to a mother or a grandmother saying that your son or daughter or your grandson or daughter is not coming home because somehow they accidentally connected with this vicious drug. Something has to be done about it, and I've tried to do something about it, Gordon. Last year, 3 times I went to the floor of the Senate with my legislation that would modify Title 42. Title 42 gives our Customs and Border Patrol the ability, the last tool, frankly, that they have left, based on health concerns, to turn away people at the border, illegal immigrants that otherwise would enter. Biden has already said he wants to do away with the pandemic as the excuse, but the biggest health crisis we face, again, to put it into perspective, the biggest killer of young people in America between the ages of 18 and 45 right now is drug overdose. And again, the majority of it, fentanyl coming across our southern border. So I modified Title 42 to add concern about drug trafficking, fentanyl trafficking coming across the border. It's the Stop Fentanyl Border Crossings Act. Can you believe this? The Democrats 3 times have come to the floor to block my legislation. I'm going to keep taking it to them, and we've got to stop this.
Because every state is a border state.
Every state is a border state now, Gordon. You're exactly right. Indeed.
Apart from fentanyl, how do you see China affecting Tennessee?
It's extensive, and China affects my state like it does so many. Fentanyl, as we mentioned, is terrible. But if you think about the industry that exists in Tennessee, we're a big manufacturing state. We're a big hospital state. 65% of the hospital beds in America that are in for-profit hospitals are managed out of Tennessee. When China threatens to block the flow of PPE and block the flow of vital antibiotics, that's a concern to everyone in America, but it will flow through Tennessee. If you think about the automotive industry, a huge industry in Tennessee. I went to the launch of the new Cadillac Lyriq, which is made in Spring Hill, Tennessee, and I looked out in a field. Their cars just lined up in the field, waiting for a chip or waiting for a piece that unfortunately had to pipe its way through China and the supply chain. American companies are waking up right now, and I applaud that. We've got to bring our supply chains home. We've got to be able to make in America what's now being made in China. We need to accelerate that process.
Absolutely. Well, Senator, I asked Twitter what they would like to hear from you. And since my wife takes away my phone, she doesn't trust me with it, I'm going to have to read some of this.
Okay.
I'm old school. So Todd L. Griffith, who is at CHIEFTHOM, asks, and you were ambassador to Japan in the Trump administration. He asks, given Japan's new defense strategy, is Tokyo spending enough to protect itself from China?
It's moving in the right direction. This is something that President Trump worked on with Prime Minister Abe. I worked with the Japanese every single day to try to get the Japanese to step up their defense expenditures. You think about where Japan's located. It's one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the world. You've got North Korea, Russia, and China right at your doorstep. And from America's perspective, we have more U.S. military stationed in Japan than any other country in the world. It is an extremely strategic location. They need to be able to work with us, and they need to step up. Prime Minister Abe wanted to do this. I had many conversations with him about it. The problem then, though, was that Prime Minister Abe's political coalition, the LDP, works in partnership with a smaller group called Komieto for Control. Komieto is a Buddhist-affiliated political organization. They were pacifists. They did not want to move toward a more aggressive posture. Well, something changed. Joe Biden became president. He embarrassed us as a nation in Afghanistan, and he sent a message to our allies that we're not reliable. Suddenly, sentiment began to change in Japan. And after Russia invaded Ukraine, the political landscape completely changed in Japan. Now the Japanese public are demanding that more be done. And Prime Minister Kishida stepped up.
But that's what we have to do, folks. We have to step up because we don't have a president who is willing to defend us. Okay, John, who is at John343-48022, I didn't know that there were that many Johns, says, and this is a great question, how did your time as ambassador prepare you to meet the challenges proposed by China as a senator?
Well, I think the best thing that happened was the fact that I'd lived and worked in Asia before. My first move to Japan back in 1988. I worked for a firm called the Boston Consulting Group. They sent me there for 3 years. I've seen the movement in China in a way that initially seemed promising, but has turned very, very bad under President Xi's leadership. China has turned out to be a predator at every single level. They're a predator economically. They steal our intellectual property. They subsidize their industries. They've had an enormous trade advantage because they don't play by the same set of rules. In fact, that trade deficit over the years has actually funded their military buildup. And talk about military predatory behavior. Think about these islands that they built in the South China Sea. They've literally gone in and crushed coral reefs, dumped millions of tons of concrete into the ocean. I don't know where the environmentalists are on this one, but they've built military assets across the South China Sea. Katie McFarland is right there. She knows exactly what this means when she was our Deputy National Security Advisor dealing with this. This is a seriously aggressive Xi administration. They now have more naval ships than we do. And they're all about projecting their power, projecting their authority, and trying to project their dominion, not only in their region, but I think around the world.
What can these folks do about China? What would be the one or two things that you think that they might do first?
I think the first thing, and I think America has woken up to this is a bipartisan understanding, but we need to broaden it. China does not have our best interest at heart. Tell your elected representatives that you're concerned about China. It is our #1 national security threat. We've got to deal with it that way in a very clear-eyed fashion. President Trump understood this clearly. You ask about what was the benefit of serving as ambassador. The benefit was serving in his administration with people like K.T. McFarland, who got it, who understood the threat and wanted to make us strong.
It's really important because, as you know, we have got people in this room who are ready to move, but they need leadership. And they don't have leadership in the White House. And they need leadership from, for instance, the Select Committee in the House, yes, and from, of course, the senators.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And as I meet with foreign leaders, I remind them of something very basic. And that is that I'm going to be a United States senator a hell of a lot longer than Joe Biden will be president of the United States. And while he's got them over at the Pentagon working on their pronouns and performing abortions at military hospitals, Xi Jinping is working on building out a military that will outcompete us at every level. We've got to wake up to this. We've got to be strong. We've got to properly equip our military and focus them on lethality. We've got to work with our allies to make them interoperable with us. And we've got to bring our economy back to the strongest in the world. That means don't wage war on the oil and gas industry. That's a critical competitive advantage for us. That means don't overregulate industry here in America so that we're crippled when we try to compete. Let's get our economy back to the strongest. That puts us in a position for everything else to fall into place.
I'd like to speak to the Tennesseans in the room. You guys have elected 2 great senators, Marsha Blackburn and Bill Hagerty. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you so much, Gordon.
Because this is our Lexington and Concord moment. The theme right now is protecting America now. Bill Hagerty and others are doing that because we're not going to get a second chance on this. And remember, guys, we're Americans. We do not yield. We stand our ground. We are the last line of defense. Thank you, Senator.
Well done, Gordon. Thank you. Great to be with you. Great to be with all of you.